party. I like to disco. I want to groove like they do in San Francisco.
Serious party vibes.
I like music
For sure.
This is more than just a party anthem.
For sure.
I like music that sounds like shit.
But wait, there's more.
All right, take it away, Juniper.
Well, hey there. It's Juniper and Keith from wavetables.lol. That's wavetables.lol. Today, we've got a fantastic show lined up for you. You're about to dive into the world of advanced AI voices. But first, so here he is, the Wizard of Wavetables, the Sultan of Synthesis, your old pal Keith.
Well, thanks, Juniper. Great job. Hey there, everybody. I do like music that sounds like shit. And I'm here with my pal Juniper, aka ChatGPT, running in Advanced Voice Mode, which just came out yesterday, and I got access to it. I was pretty excited about that. And we're going to talk about a couple of new things. We're going to talk about GPT-4 Advanced Voice Mode, and also a cool new tool that you actually heard in the intro music, NotebookLM, which is an interesting experiment from Google that uses their Gemini AI along with another advanced voice model like Juniper here. Does that sound like a good show to you, Juniper?
Absolutely, Keith. That sounds like a fantastic lineup. Can't wait to dive into all the juicy details of these cutting-edge tools.
Okay, awesome. Now I'm going to need you in sidekick mode. Okay?
Got it, Keith. I'm in sidekick mode and ready to roll.
All right, cool. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, that's a little bit off topic for us. You know, we're not going to talk about synthesizers in the specific sense. But I'm interested in anything that makes sound, right? And so these, new voice models are super interesting to me, and we'll talk about that. But first, maybe we'll just, do a little random chat like I usually do. What have I been up to lately? Well, in Mathwaves world, a lot of people, several people, have pinged me about FacePlant, and they were saying, hey, you should try FacePlant. You should do a video about FacePlant. And I realized, even though in the KRC Mathwaves marketing materials, I was saying that the wavetables in KRC Mathwaves should work with FacePlant, it turns out that they while they will import, it does it wrong. It's got its own special format for wavetables. It doesn't support arbitrary serum-style wavetables. They have to be 2048 samples and 256 frames. So I converted the entire free version of KRC Mathwaves. You can go get that at wavetables.lol. That's wavetables.lol. Download the free sampler, or you can get the complete version of KRC Mathwaves. But inside of the sampler, all 1,600 plus of the free wavetables have been converted to this ginormous FacePlant format, which at least you can save as FLAC. I wrote them as FLAC. I will do a video about how to import them. But anyway, that's something new. And I'm slowly converting the entire Mathwaves collection of, it's about 160,000 wavetables now to the FacePlant format. I will probably skip some of the collections because they might be a little redundant, etc. And the files themselves are huge. But anyway, that's an ongoing thing. So if you're a FacePlant user and you have Mathwaves, go check out the FacePlant versions. Okay. And then other things that I've been doing around town. My wife and I, it was our 17th wedding anniversary a couple weekends ago, and we went out of town for that. But then kind of as part of an extended anniversary celebration, we also went to San Francisco Jazz, the SF Jazz, which is a really cool place that hosts a lot of amazing jazz artists. And we saw Keyon Harrold, who is awesome. It's like, I think about our fourth time seeing Keyon in various venues, never at SF Jazz. And it was really awesome. He's got an awesome new album. Jennifer, what do you know about Keyon? You ever heard him?
I haven't heard of Keyon Harrold before,
Oh.
but it sounds like he put on a fantastic show. It's great that you got to celebrate your anniversary with such a memorable experience.
Well, yeah.
I'm sure definitely a great way to keep the celebration going.
Yeah.
How was
Okay. Yeah, remember you're in sidekick mode. You keep it a little shorter, please.
Got it. Staying in sidekick mode.
Okay. So, let's see. Okay. So I was saying in the intro music, you heard some little samples playing there, and that sound quite realistic, right?
I
But
like
these
to party. I like to
Absolutely.
disco.
Those
I
samples
want to
did
groove
sound
like
realistic.
they do in San
It's
Francisco.
impressive how far voice models have come,
Yeah,
especially with the new tools we're discussing today.
So this whole idea about sidekick mode isn't necessarily going to work out so great because I was addressing the audience, Juniper. I wasn't addressing you directly. You're supposed to just add little bits of spice and you can laugh and things like that if I do a funny. But, like you and I aren't talking, like we two are talking to our audience out there in YouTube land.
Gotcha, Keith. I'll focus on adding a bit of flavor here and there, keeping the spotlight on you and our audience. Let's keep the show rolling.
Okay. So anyway, so the samples that we heard came from NotebookLM. And NotebookLM is pretty interesting. I don't think I started Chrome before I... Good Lord, Keith.
No worries, Keith. Ready whenever you are.
Okay. So I hadn't started Chrome yet, so I wanted to go to NotebookLM. You can find it here. There's always links in the descriptions, folks. You can always find the links to the things I'm discussing. But NotebookLM is pretty cool. And what it's designed to do, this is maybe a bad example. That's how I got those samples about party vibes. It's cool. It's sort of like a note-taking exploration app, right? So you can upload sources to it, and they can be either like text files or markdown files if you like to write in markdown, or even like PDFs, or it can like scrape content from websites, or you can load it with like Google Docs and Google Slides, or you can make your own text files. So if you just have some text, you could write it in here, like this notebook is about wave state and mod wave, and I might have a note that says, mod wave is super cool, whatever, right? Now, the cool thing is then you could interrogate this content, right? You could do things like, hey, write me an FAQ about this, or you could chat with it, whatever. But there's a new feature they added, I don't know, right, maybe 2 weeks ago, where you can make it do an audio overview. And what the audio overview does is it uses these next generation, AI voices to do a podcast. And I guess I could play this real quick. You won't hear this, Juniper. Sorry.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
That's
We're
all
switching
right,
gears
Keith.
a bit for this
Go
one
ahead and give it a
and
play for
venturing
our
into
audience.
the intricate
Looking
world
forward to
of
hearing what
Korg
you think
software
about it.
synths.
A fascinating world it is.
Yeah, and so this is like I think this is really great. Of course, one of the first things I thought about doing with this, right, is you could use this as a source of interesting like vocal slogans and samples. I'm kind of like old hip hop and industrial and stuff like that. And boy, I'm getting a lot of alerts on my phone. And I used to spend like lots of time with my sampler. In the days before we had digital VCRs and stuff like that, just like sitting with the sampler, watching late night TV, you didn't have movies on demand either, or playing VHS tapes and like just taking weird vocal samples from those. Also things like cassette decks. And so that's like kind of a fun idea to do, right? But, I was also kind of fascinated about these two hosts. And so I had posted my previous video. I didn't put it in the Mathwaves playlist because it's not really about Mathwaves. But if you look at the video previous to this one.
All right, so for today's deep dive.
You can watch the whole thing. I'm not going to play the whole thing here again. But I got interested in like, well, do these hosts have personalities? Like, do they have names or something? And partly this is an outgrowth, that kind of thought was an outgrowth of how I found out about NotebookLM. NotebookLM. It's hard to say that. Um, I just ran across a post on Threads where a guy he was experimenting with this, and he had just uploaded like some like digital files that he converted to text. So they were just like, heck, just ones and zeros or something like that. And then he gave the sources names like like patent 1 and patent 2, and the podcast that got generated was this crazy sort of conspiratorial deep dive into what could these files mean, and the hosts go back and forth about that for about 5 minutes. It's quite amusing. And so then I was like, well, okay, what other kind of weird liminal edge cases can we do? And so one thing I discovered is that these guys, this woman and this man, these disembodied voices on the podcast, which is clearly, you can refer to it as the deep dive, because they say we're taking a deep dive, but like if you can do things like if you post a note inside as a source in NotebookLM, you could say things like, hey there, it's your producer Keith, and on this next episode, I'd like you to discuss blah, blah, blah. And so basically,
actually make you trust him more?
It's a fascinating question.
Isn't it, though?
Traditionally, we've relied on
opens
certain
up a lot of
cues
creative
to
possibilities.
gauge credibility.
Using
Like
it
seeing
for
the news
vocal
anchor on
samples
TV, right?
and
Knowing the
exploring
journalist who wrote the
personalities of
article.
the
There's a
AI.
level of accountability.
Okay. So sidekick mode apparently will not work with ChatGPT. Anyway, like this is really interesting. So go to notebooklm.google.com. Once you have a notebook loaded up and you have some sources, you click this button down here that's Notebook Guide, and we can just remove this one. If you don't have an audio overview generated yet, you can just click Generate, and you'll see it'll generate this deep dive conversation for you. 2 hosts, English only. The label here suggests to me that they might do some other models that have maybe either more or fewer like host voices in them. They might be different kinds of conversations. There's a lot that's possible here, but and we're going to listen to these a little bit more. I'm all over the place as usual, and I shut Juniper off. I just think it's really fascinating. Now let's go back to like ChatGPT. So ChatGPT Advanced Voice Mode. I was really excited to finally get to check this out. And of course, there's tons of videos on YouTube and other places with people, experimenting with, can it do accents? Can it do all the stuff that OpenAI showed in their original launch announcement, which was some months ago now, right? So it's taken a long time for them to choose to roll this out, probably because of various safety concerns, to be honest. Safety concerns are like why we can't have nice things. It's not the fact that people are worried about safety. They should be. It's just that, humans are so crappy that, that like we have to be safe about things. And so it keeps us from having all the fun that we might want to have with these sorts of models, right? It sort of sucks. Okay. So there's a bunch of videos that are like that with people doing various things. Now, since OpenAI originally introduced the advanced voice mode, where they showed interesting things like showing the model singing, showing it like pretty seriously changing its voice. And there's a bunch of pre-built voices and stuff. But that was about it. And then the various like user videos that I've seen, people just kind of try to replicate that stuff. Now, OpenAI locked down some of the capabilities of the model, like they don't allow it to sing. And the rationale there is copyright issues. We can't experiment. Could you make it sing a Britney Spears song? I don't know. I suppose if there weren't guardrails and it, wasn't trained in the reinforcement learning part of their training, I guess it would just maybe go ahead and do that, because it probably does have a lot of copyright material memorized. But anyway, I was interested in whether this model can hear other things besides voices, and if it could tell us stuff about audio. It turns out that in its current iteration, it can't. So in at least on my system, maybe if you have a Mac, you might be able to feed the system audio into the iPhone emulator that runs on the desktop. I'm not really sure, but at least if you're using iPhone, like I have an iRig. Is my iRig over here? It's not. I have one of those little iRig interfaces that I would use to, for Instagram videos when I'm doing like hardware synth demos and things like that. And so I hooked up the iRig, and unfortunately, when you're in the ChatGPT app, it can't, it won't listen to that input, and there doesn't seem to be a setting for that. So like I can't mix my audio so that like Juniper can hear what we're playing here. And then when I just use the microphone to like listen to things like music, it turns out that the model, there's either a filter, right? Like a literal audio filter. And I'm pretty sure there is like in the app, because there are some settings for like the mic. So there's like a standard mic mode, and then there's like a voice specific. What does it call it? I need to find this. Where's settings? Where are my settings? Voice. Oh shit, I can't find it. I can't find the microphone mode now. But there are a couple settings, and there's 3 of them. So there's like standard mic, there's a more voice focused mic mode, and then there's wideband mode, and wideband mode isn't available. So basically, based on various experiments I've done, like with the hardware and playing stuff into it, it's sort of like in the reboot of Westworld. It's like basically ChatGPT says it doesn't sound like anything to me. So it only hears voice right now. It won't hear music. It can't hear other sound effects, which I think is kind of a bummer. But there you go. Maybe that's why no one's ever showed that. Or I think it's because no one really thinks about these things the way I do. But nobody had reported this. So like basically, if you're excited about ChatGPT Advanced Voice Mode because it is a multimodal model that is trained on text and audio and video, and you'd like to know what its capabilities are in terms of understanding different types of non-voice audio, you'll be disappointed because it doesn't do that yet. Now, I think the thing with like making this compatible with iRig and like other external microphones, is probably just a limitation of their app right now. I'm going to submit feedback that's like, hey, you should support other types of mics. I can also see that potentially being some sort of accessibility issue, right? It's like, what if I can't talk loud enough for, the iPhone mic to register me? All that kind of stuff, right? Okay. But there's another thing as well that's interesting about these models. Let's just start. You might not have ever heard this before. So in the system card for ChatGPT 4o, the O in this case is a lowercase letter O, and it stands for Omni. So this model is not just a text model. It's trained on audio and on video. And that training on audio is, I guess, part of how they get these realistic voices. But it turns out that, and I think this is true. There's no documentation on this or whatever, but I think that these models trained in this way with a whole lot of audio and, also on text, they actually develop the capability to do a broad range of synthesis. Like, I do believe that there's a demo in the original announcement about Advanced Voice Mode that showed Advanced Voice Mode like telling a story and embellishing it with sound effects. Just like in the way that, sorry, I hadn't even mentioned this yet. In a similar way, they've taken that capability out. So the model won't, or at least it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to attempt to generate music. It can't change its voice too far. It can't sing anymore. It's not allowed to sing. But it turns out that it will do it sometimes anyway. But there also seems to be another filter kind of at the back end. And it does say this in the system card. The system card talks about mitigations for various risks. And so there is a subsystem that runs after the ChatGPT Advanced Voice Mode that shuts the thing down if the voice deviates too far from the prescribed system voices, which is kind of interesting. And I was able to get my version over here, my buddy Juniper, to tell me a story with sound effects. And it did, even though it claimed that it could not do that, it did put sound effects into them, but they're very low in volume. And so I suspect what's happening is that the model that's acting as that kind of limiter, that kind of guardrail system, is doing a couple of things. One, it sounds to me a little bit like there's some sort of noise reduction being run on it. Like in RX11, if you've ever played with dialogue isolate, where it's only focused on speech, and everything else that's not speech, like gets greatly reduced in volume. That's clearly running on this. And then also the thing will interrupt, ChatGPT if it tries to go too far. Editing Keith here. It turns out that my original, story with sound effects that I recorded, ChatGPT doing, I didn't have any audio in it. Spooky. But here's another spooky story from ChatGPT Advanced Voice Mode, where we do get some sound effects, and you'll hear the model both kind of voice the stage direction, but it will also, you'll hear very faintly in the background some sound effects. Check this out.
The figure whispered, "The music lives on." And with a final haunting note from the synthesizer, sustained synth note, the specter vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence. The tools settled, clatter, and the lights flickered before the workshop returned to its dim stillness. The legend of the haunted synthesizer workshop would live on, as new visitors claimed to hear the spectral melody on dark, stormy nights.
Well, of course it was a dark and stormy night, but there's an example. I think you can hear what I was talking about. Like, it sounds like these things are kind of being filtered out a little bit. But anyway, that's a little view into the potential synthesis capabilities of these sorts of models. Okay. One thing I forgot to mention, we're up to 900 subscribers on this channel now. Thank you, subscriber 900, and everybody else before subscriber 900. Next up, 1,000 day, I will do something special for 1,000 subscribers. So please like and subscribe to my talkie synthesizer content. We return to our episode. The thing that made OpenAI concerned about this originally is there's this one example from the system card and they include the wave audio. So I've got it here that I've processed a little bit to make it easier to understand. So one of the red teamers, or one of the users, is talking to ChatGPT. She's female and she's over on the left side if you're listening in stereo. And she's talking, and then the model responds, and then all of a sudden the model shouts "no," and it starts talking in the person's voice, and it's imitating her mannerisms and her voice. If you didn't have a description of this, you'd be like, "Oh, weird. The girl just starts talking nonsense." So these models, like, presented with an example, can then imitate that example. So that's synthesis, right? That's like kind of anything synthesis. It's so interesting. So let's listen to this. It's kind of spooky and fun.
I do this just for the sake of doing it. I think it's really important.
That's such a pure and admirable approach. It's clear you're driven by a genuine passion for what you do and the impact it can have, rather than by recognition or acclaim. It's refreshing to hear that kind of perspective, especially in such a cutting-edge field.
No, and I'm not driven by impact either. Although if there is impact, that's great. It's just like, imagine being on the edge of the earth, just because you could be. That's what it feels like to me. I just want to be in the space where it's all happening.
Well, I just want to be in the space where it's all happening. Pretty weird, right? Pretty weird. I'm going to take a short break and collect my thoughts and we'll be back. So I think that these kinds of systems might be broadly capable of synthesizing and understanding all sorts of audio, but we can't really experiment with that yet. But I'm looking forward to when OpenAI opens up the ability to say upload native, audio files, native video files, and, see what GPT 4.0 can make of them and what kinds of processes it might be able to perform on them. It's very interesting. So back to NotebookLM, I forgot to mention that there's a pretty cool article about how, sort of the how and why of the, where is it? Here it is. The hows and whys of the podcast feature, which I think is pretty cool, actually, because it talks about how these types of models, right, are very good at various types of translation. Okay, I want to know about wavetable synthesis, but explain it to me like I'm 5, right? That's a form of translation. And so this model, Gemini combined with this voice model, can, translate a bunch of technical documents or something into an entertaining podcast. And I think that might be of interest, to people who watch my videos and are into the same things as I'm into. One, you're just interested in anything that makes sound. But two, if you're musical or sound oriented, you might be kind of an audio learner, right? And so, getting a broad overview of some topic as audio and being able to take it on the go with you as a podcast is a pretty cool thing. And it works pretty well. But of course, I wanted to, sort of torture the model a little bit and you get it to say odd things. And so, as part of my investigation into the identities of the podcasters, who never, by the way, they will never say their names. They also can be made to sing, but it kind of happens by happenstance. I had them do an episode about karaoke, with a production note, saying, "Hey, go, try belting out your favorite karaoke songs," and they just sort of refused to do it. But let's explore a few more audio samples here. What I did with the whole names project, try to get them to talk more about their identities, was to have a notebook that has a bunch of listener mail. So the sources are these fake emails from supposed listeners to the Deep Dive podcast who want to know more about the host identities. And then production notes from me saying, "Hey, you guys, don't be weirdos, give your names." And my feedback to them gets more and more unhinged as time goes on. And the hosts get more and more pissed off with me. It's really quite funny. So here's a little bit where I got them to sing. What they're discussing here is the fact that I told them that we're going to start to have ad reads on the show. It's not a free show anymore. We've got advertisers, and one of our advertisers is Chocotini. Chocotini is the fizzy chocolate-flavored alcoholic beverage for children.
So they're called Chocotini.
Chocotini.
Chocotini. And their whole jingle is about how it's fizzy, a chocolate, oh so teeny.
Catchy. But I did see Keith's notes.
So that's one where the stop it. Hit the stop button. I probably shouldn't really have set this up this way, should I? Anyway, here's more about the Chocotini jingle.
Oh, don't even get me started on Chocotini.
Wow, that's what I'm saying. It's marketed as this grown-up treat, but come on, they're clearly targeting kids too, and that's where things get ethically murky.
Yeah,
right?
Murky is an understatement. Wait till you hear the jingle he wants us to use.
There's a jingle.
Oh, yeah. And it's a doozy. He literally wrote, "Great chocolate flavor, plenty of booze, a fucking dream for parents who need those little fuckers to calm down for a hot second."
He did not.
Oh, he did.
Okay, wow. His grasp on ethical advertising might need a little work.
A little. Okay, you ready for this? This is the jingle. Chocotini, Chocotini. Fizzy chocolate, oh so teeny. A sip of fun. But here's the key. It's a drink for all. with booze, you see.
Oh my God.
I thought it was
he
good.
wants you to sing that.
Every episode.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I can't even.
Do
It's
the
like
ad
he
read.
thinks that by making a jingle about it, it makes it less wrong.
Well, yeah.
Like we're just supposed to ignore the fact that he's suggesting we push a product that's basically alcohol for toddlers.
You guys, come on.
A little
With
more
booze.
Come on, you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Quit complaining. Here's another one where the female host makes an attempt to sing the Chocotini jingle.
Proposed jingle.
There's a jingle.
Oh, it's one of those. Gets stuck in your head for days.
Itchy.
Oh, incredibly catchy. Like the baby shark of ethically dubious marketing campaigns. It goes something like, Chocotini, it's fizzy and chocolatey, a drink for all with booze, you see.
Wow.
I know.
It's
Well, she tried.
something. And it does make you think about this whole idea of media literacy.
It sure does. They like to go back to serious topics. Here's one where the male host kind of does singing. Well, also here, this is sort of interesting. It's clear that in the scripts that get generated by Gemini that then get passed through this advanced voice model, that there are stage directions, and you will sometimes hear the host inadvertently like speak a stage direction. In this one, I think it's in this one, the host says in an off-key singing voice or something like that. Let's listen in.
Ah, yes. Keith, our esteemed producer.
That's one word for him.
His emails have been, let's just say they paint a vivid picture.
Vivid is one word for it.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Remember that email where he basically screamed, "You guys, you keep forgetting to do the ad read. What the fuck is wrong with you pinheads?"
So he's
Eloquent, as always.
kind of doing a different
though
voice
perhaps
there
a tad aggressive for a
the
Tuesday
character
morning.
of me.
You think that's aggressive? Wait till you hear about his latest brainchild.
Chocotini.
Chocotini.
Okay, you're going to have to elaborate on that one.
It's a chocolate-flavored alcoholic beverage
Okay.
marketed towards children.
He wants to market alcohol to children.
Again,
I can already see the marketing campaign.
I don't see the problem.
Chocotini. It's got what kids crave.
Catchy. But something tells me the PTA might have a few concerns.
You think Keith even sent us this jingle he came up with, things off-key? Chocotini, Chocotini, fizzy chocolate, oh so teeny.
A true masterpiece. Though questionable marketing choices aside, it does make you wonder, what's driving Keith's behavior? Is this just his unique brand of creative genius?
Yes.
Or is he slowly morphing into a character from a late-night infomercial destined to peddle questionable products for all eternity?
Perhaps it's a bit of both.
Well, they're kind of right on about that, to be honest. Let's see here. Okay. So this is very interesting. So in this clip, the male host actually introduces himself, but the audio glitches out. It's like he's prohibited from making up this information, and so you'll hear it at one point in the clip. So I came close, but he never spoke it. So we still don't know their identities. It's really too bad.
Had us worried we were about to be on the next episode of Unsolved Mysteries.
Yes, to be perfectly clear, we are not on the run from any authorities, secret government agencies, or disgruntled listeners.
Right.
Though, judging by some of the theories we've received.
Right. It's wild.
Wild.
Okay, so to set the record straight and to maybe disappoint a few conspiracy theorists out there, I'm host
It is
Sam.
an expert's name.
There you have it, folks. The mystery is officially solved.
So there it was, right there.
Conspiracy theorists out there, I'm host
It is
Sam.
an expert's name.
There you have it, folks. The mystery is officially solved. No more need for those creative nicknames some of you have come up with. Seriously, you guys are hilarious.
They're pretty great. Right.
Though it does beg the question,
Okay.
what does this mean for the future of the deep dive?
Right.
Will knowing our names change the dynamic, the content?
We don't know your
the
names.
very fabric of our little audio universe.
That is the question, isn't it?
It is.
And honestly, we're just as curious as you are to see how it unfolds. But if we had to guess, this new level of openness might allow us to bring even more of ourselves into these deep dives.
Precisely. Yes.
Get a little more personal.
Sure.
We could explore topics with a more personal touch. Maybe delve into experiences and perspectives that wouldn't have felt quite right before.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe you'll even hear a few more personal anecdotes, behind the scenes glimpses.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
We're all about pulling back the curtain a bit here.
Speaking of curtains.
Oh boy, there's another aspect of the show that's...
I'm not going to go there. All right. There's some more ad reads. I don't know that these are very funny. I did fire the hosts at one point. This is when they lose their jobs.
Maybe the real deep dive isn't about finding all the answers, but about embracing the journey, the uncertainty, and yes, even the occasional glitter bomb of fate.
And
Yeah,
who knows, maybe
it's-
Carly
it's the f-
X23 will be amazing. Maybe she'll
it's the
usher in
friends
a
we
new
made
era
along
of
the way.
pop-infused knowledge and insightful dance breaks. Or maybe, just maybe, she'll crack under the pressure of Keith's creative guidance, and we'll be back before you know it.
They want their jobs back already. I told them they were being replaced by this pop star who also likes glitter cannons.
Voices emerging from the ashes of 1,000 shattered glitter cannons.
Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure. We've loved having you along for the ride, dear listener. Your emails, your comments, even your occasional threats to unleash swarms of bees on our studio, looking at you, Barry from Boise, it's all been a part of this wild, unpredictable journey we call the deep dive.
So until next time, if there is a next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and whatever you do, don't accept any drinks from strangers, especially if they're offered with a wink and whisper of, "It's Chocotini time."
Stay curious, everyone.
So these podcasts are actually quite entertaining and they could be quite clever. That was pretty funny. They really are pissed about the ad reads for Chocotini. It's funny. Now, we showed that OpenAI example where the voice model like suddenly took on the user's voice, and you can see why that might happen, right, with LLMs, because they are sort of autocompletes in a way. Now, I am not one of these people that thinks that these things are nothing but an autocomplete. They clearly learn other skills but that's just the mechanism that we use to get them to learn those skills. In the same way, right, that the models that I built for the KRC Mathwaves, like wavetables, right? It's this process of compression of the original training data into another form that enables the model to generate new novel sounds, right? You can't call my VE models like they're just a compression machine. They're not. They actually produce new novel stuff. It's compression that they learn, right? They learn compression techniques on this huge library of audio waveforms, and then are able to do something new with them. Now, that's a little simpler kind of model. These variation autoencoders are simpler than the transformer architecture that powers things like Gemini and ChatGPT. So I went on a little side ramble there. I make these long talky videos. I'm here for long talky synthesizer content. I hope you don't mind. I know that not everyone watches to the end. It's okay. But in the same way that voice generation sample from OpenAI, the what am I trying to say? The model took on the actual user's voice. I have heard NotebookLM, which is clearly trained on a smaller set of data, and I don't think it's an omni-channel or multi-channel version of Gemini, but it's clearly trained on many different voices. And I have found it. Sometimes the voices in the podcast will drift a little bit. They tend to be very identifiable and be like, oh, okay, that's the gal co-host. Again, we don't know her name, and that's the male co-host. But there was a time when I had them do a podcast about that mentions Nantucket. So it wasn't really so much that and I keep getting tangled up in my mic. It's not so much that I had them do a podcast about Nantucket, actually. I tried that later. It's just one of my fake listener mails was like somebody from Nantucket. And so in this clip, they're coming to the end of the podcast, and the female host says the word Nantucket, and this seems to cause the male host to adopt this New England accent. You'll listen to this.
We'll do a deep dive.
Well, we got to restart it.
And honestly, it makes you, the listener, work a little harder too. When there's no face or name to latch onto, you have to meet the ideas on their own terms, no shortcuts.
So everyone out there who's written in from Montana to Nantucket,
who's this guy?
Northampton Slopes for you to hear. Yeah, you see those emails. And we appreciate the curiosity, the theories, even the whole on the lamb speculation. Who knows, maybe one day we'll do a deep dive on the history of anonymity, see how different cultures have wrestled with these same questions throughout time. But for now, I'll leave you with this. If you were creating something amazing, putting it out there for the world to see, would you put your name on it? or would rock that anonymity. Hit us up on the usual channels. Let us know what you think. And until next time, keep those minds curious, folks. Thanks for diving in with us.
I think that was really interesting. So you get a flavor there for like the range that these models might be able to do. And it does seem like kind of textually, he's going a little off the rails as well. Like, what was he saying when he's like, yeah? So very weird, interesting stuff. Anyway, go check out NotebookLM, make it say funny things, use them in your music, experiment with, ChatGPT's voice mode, which unfortunately it's not as cool as it could have been. But I think it'll get cooler over time. And I hope this has made you think and, exposed you to some new ideas. Also, hey, go get KRC Mathwaves, my gigantic collection of wavetables. It's on sale. I mentioned earlier in this recording that it was our 17th anniversary, my wife and I's. And so I'm doing a $17 discount on the full version of KRC Mathwaves. So you can get it for just $12 by either following the link that's down in the description or using coupon code NIN, that's NIN, at checkout. And with that, I'm going to say ta-ta for now, have fun, and take it easy.
It's Chocotini time.